So, what if the workouts you've relied on for the last, 20 years aren't just stopping working?
Yeah.
What if they are actually physically programming your body to store belly fat?
Oh, I mean, it sounds like a total betrayal, right? You put in the exact same effort, maybe even more, and your physiology actively rebels against you.
It really does. It's the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters, and it is just incredibly frustrating. But anyway, welcome to this deep dive. I'm so glad you are here with us for this one.
Yeah, we have a really important mission today. We are decoding a massive stack of groundbreaking sources for you.
Exactly. We have clinical medical studies, the latest physical therapy guidelines, and this truly paradigm-shifting book. It's called The Complete Military Calisthenics Workout for Women in Their 40s, 50s, and 60s by Sergeant Major Alex Smith.
It's an incredible resource, and our singular goal today is to fundamentally rethink fitness for women entering perimenopause and menopause. We have to shift the focus from exhaustion to adaptation.
Right, adaptation. Because we really need to unpack those complex, microscopic biological shifts that happen in the female body. The shifts that make those old routines completely obsolete.
Exactly, and we are going to ground this deeply in the science of those changing mechanisms. It's not just guesswork anymore.
No, it's not. And to you, the listener, I want to make a promise right up front. By the end of our conversation today, you will understand exactly why your body is changing. You'll understand the actual chemistry.
And more importantly, you are going to learn how to work with that biology rather than fighting against it every time you lace up your shoes.
Because fighting your own biology is a battle you lose every time, right?
Every single time. Understanding it is where you reclaim your power.
Let's start where Sergeant Major Alex Smith starts, right in the very first chapter of the book. Reading this opening, I felt like someone had hacked into my brain and read my diary.
It's incredibly relatable, isn't it?
It is. Just speaking from my own experience, hitting my late 40s, suddenly there is this invisible wall. The workouts that kept me fit for a decade didn't just stop working, they left me utterly depleted.
Yeah, you drag yourself through the day, feeling like you're moving through wet concrete. That exhaustion is systemic.
Wet concrete is the perfect way to describe it.
Uh,
It's central nervous system fatigue, not just tired muscles. And then there's the weight.
the weight that just seemingly appears around the middle, entirely uninvited.
Completely uninvited. I was looking at my diet thinking I'm eating the exact same salads, the same lean proteins, I'm drinking my water, but the body composition just shifted overnight.
Right. It feels like it happens in the blink of an eye.
And the recovery. A tough workout used to mean I was sore for an afternoon, maybe needed a good night's sleep. Now, my joints ache in a way that feels fundamentally structural.
And it takes days to recover instead of hours. The fitness industry has historically done a terrible job of addressing this.
Oh, absolutely terrible.
They treat women in midlife like they're just smaller men. Or worse, they imply that you aren't trying hard enough. So I want to draw directly from the consensus across all our clinical sources today.
Please do, because this is so validating.
None of this is a lack of discipline. It is not laziness. It is not a weakness of character. And it is definitely not just you getting older and needing to quietly accept a decline.
Thank you. That was the massive aha moment for me in these texts. This isn't bad luck. It is specific, nameable, and trainable biology.
Precisely. The fundamental rules of how the body operates have changed.
And if the underlying physiology is different, applying the same physiological stress is going to yield a completely different result, usually a negative one.
Exactly. You can't use the same inputs and expect the same outputs when the system itself is altered.
Right. So here's how I'm conceptualizing what's happening based on the sources. Imagine your smartphone, right? You just downloaded a massive, completely new operating system update.
Okay, I like this analogy.
So that update is your entirely new hormonal profile, but you are trying to open and use the exact same outdated apps, which are your workouts from your 20s and 30s.
Oh, that's brilliant. So the hardware is fine. You are not broken.
Exactly. The hardware is fine, but the software is crashing because it's completely incompatible with the new OS.
The hardware, your muscles, your bones, they still work. They still possess the capacity to adapt. But the signaling environment, the operating system that dictates how they adapt, has undergone a massive update.
So to understand why those old apps are crashing, we have to look deeply into the science. And we really need to start with estrogen.
Yes, estrogen is key here.
Because we're taught in middle school health class that estrogen is just the reproductive hormone,
Right, that's the common misconception, yeah.
But reading these medical studies, that seems to miss a massive piece of the puzzle. It's profoundly metabolic, isn't it?
It really is. It is a master regulator of your metabolism. Let's break down its multifaceted role, starting with insulin sensitivity.
Okay, so how are cells handle carbohydrates?
Exactly. Insulin sensitivity dictates whether your cells use carbs for immediate energy or store them as fat. Estrogen essentially keeps the doors to your muscle cells highly sensitive to insulin.
So it allows glucose to enter easily.
Right. So estrogen acts like the bouncer at a club, making sure the glucose gets into the muscle cells where the party is, instead of being redirected over to the fat cells.
I love that. The bouncer at the club.
Furthermore, estrogen actively supports muscle protein synthesis. It helps your body respond to the mechanical stress of exercise by signaling the muscle to build back stronger.
Okay, but as a woman approaches midlife, and the World Health Organization notes that in the U.S., early midlife biological changes start at an average age of 40, those estrogen receptors in the ovaries begin to diminish.
Yeah, the production becomes erratic and then it declines, and when that bouncer leaves the club, insulin sensitivity drops.
I was reading that because the cells become slightly resistant to insulin, the body has to pump out more of it just to clear the same amount of glucose from the blood.
That's exactly right. And high insulin levels biochemically lock the body into a fat storage mode.
Wow. And because of the specific withdrawal of estrogen, that fat is preferentially stored right around the abdomen, isn't it?
Yes, that stubborn belly fat is not a calorie problem. I want to repeat that. It is a hormonal insulin resistance problem driven by the changing estrogen environment.
That explains the weight shift so clearly. It really takes the guilt away. But what about the muscle? Why does it feel so much harder to just maintain the strength I used to have naturally?
For that, we have to dive into the Frontiers meta-analyses provided in our sources. They look specifically at sarcopenia in older females.
Sarcopenia, which is the age-related loss of skeletal muscle mass and function, right?
Exactly. And after age 40, this accelerates dramatically. We are talking about losing roughly 1% of your muscle mass every single year, compounding.
1% a year sounds negligible until you realize that over a decade, you've lost 10% of your structural support.
It's massive. The data shows that in the U.S., nearly 9% of people aged 40 to 64 have clinical sarcopenia. And once you cross 65, that jumps to over 15%.
That's terrifying. And the mechanism behind this is fascinating. The sources say estrogen withdrawal directly impairs what we call satellite cell function.
Yes. Satellite cells are crucial here.
The sources dive heavily into them. From my understanding, these are basically the stem cells of our muscles, right? They sit around on the periphery of the muscle fiber.
Right. They wait for a micro tear from exercise so they can rush in, fuse up the muscle fiber, and patch it up stronger.
So they are the repair crew.
That's a great functional definition. And estrogen is a key trigger for satellite cell activation. When estrogen is low, these cells become sluggish.
They just don't want to work as hard.
The Frontier study describes this as anabolic resistance. You have a blunted muscle-building response to mechanical loading.
So you can lift the exact same weight you did at 30, but the muscle simply does not receive the same strong chemical signal to grow.
Exactly. The signal is muffled. Now, the sources outline a double whammy called sarcopenic obesity.
Oh, right. And they explicitly state that women are 3 times more likely to develop this than men. It's the vicious cycle of simultaneously losing muscle while gaining fat.
It is. And the neuroendocrine mechanism driving this absolutely blew my mind. It starts in the brain, right?
Yes, it starts in the hypothalamus.
So as estrogen levels drop, the hypothalamus notices the deficit. It's used to a certain baseline of estrogen, so it releases a hormone called GnRH, gonadotropin-releasing hormone.
It's basically sending out an SOS signal saying, we are low on estrogen, send reinforcements.
Right. So GnRH travels down to the pituitary gland, the master control gland, and the pituitary responds by pumping out follicle-stimulating hormone, or FSH.
Okay, I'm following.
In a younger woman, FSH tells the ovaries to release an egg and produce estrogen. But in perimenopause, the aging ovaries are becoming deaf to the signal.
So the pituitary starts shouting. It pumps out 10 to 20 times more FSH to try and force the ovaries into responding.
Exactly. You have this massive flood of FSH in the bloodstream, but the ovaries aren't answering the phone. So where does all that excess FSH go?
Right. Where does it go? Because it has to go somewhere.
This is the critical clinical discovery. That excess FSH binds to specific receptors located in visceral adipose tissue, your belly fat. Specifically, it binds to the G protein alpha subunit.
The G-alpha, wait, inhibitory coupling protein. Explain that to me like I'm not a biochemist. Is this protein acting like a switch on a train track?
That's a perfect way to visualize it. Imagine your fat cell has two sets of tracks. One track leads to lipolysis, which is burning fat for energy.
Okay, we want that track.
Right. The other track leads to lipid biosynthesis, which is storing and accumulating fat. The G-alpha I protein is the switchman.
Oh, wow.
When that massive flood of excess FSH binds to the receptor, it triggers the G-alpha I switch to completely shut down the fat-burning track and lock the cell onto the fat-storing track.
It is a direct chemical command to your body to accumulate visceral fat.
Yes. So to recap this, because it is so important, your brain is screaming at your ovaries to make estrogen, your ovaries are ignoring the message, and the hormone your brain is using to scream is literally being hijacked by your fat cells to build more belly fat.
Your body is actively prioritizing its creation on a neurological level. It completely reframes the guilt women feel about their midsection.
It really does. It's not you, it's the signaling. But it's not just estrogen causing the chaos. The sources also highlight progesterone.
Right, let's talk about progesterone, because that often drops before estrogen does during perimenopause, doesn't it?
It does. And progesterone is your calming hormone. It interacts heavily with GABA receptors in the brain.
And GABA is your chief inhibitory neurotransmitter, right?
Yeah.
It tells the nervous system to relax, to power down, to stop perceiving threats.
Exactly. When progesterone drops, we lose that natural chill pill. Its loss leads to lighter, fragmented sleep, an increase in generalized anxiety, and a baseline state of low-level vigilance.
You're constantly humming at a slightly higher frequency of stress. You never fully power down.
And this directly impacts recovery from exercise, which brings us to the physical symptoms people feel after working out.
Yes. The source for my menopause transformation talks about vascular stiffness. Can we unpack that? Because the aching legs issue is huge.
It is a major complaint, yeah.
I want to make sure I have the mechanism right. Blood vessels are lined with endothelial cells, and estrogen keeps those cells flexible. It's a vasodilator.
Correct. In a low estrogen environment, the blood vessels lose that elasticity. They become structurally stiffer.
It's like a multi-lane highway dropping down to a single lane during rush hour traffic.
That's exactly it. When you exercise, you produce lactic acid. In younger, flexible blood vessels, that lactate is flushed out quickly because the highway is wide open.
But with vascular stiffness, the lactic acid cars get bottlenecked because the infrastructure has lost its expanding capacity.
The result is prolonged aching in the muscles, sometimes lasting for days. Furthermore, this slow removal and the persistent stress on the system can disrupt thyroid metabolism as the body tries to compensate for the delayed recovery.
It becomes an endless catch-22 of fatigue. So, if my body is chemically resisting muscle growth through anabolic resistance, actively building belly fat through this FSH hijacking mechanism, and my blood vessels are stiffening up so I can't recover, is it a lost cause?
It can definitely feel that way.
Do we just surrender to the couch?
I want to be absolutely unequivocally clear here. It is not a lost cause. The body does not stop adapting. While the signal to build muscle is harder to trigger, human physiology responds to the right stimulus at every single age, period.
Okay, so you just have to change the stimulus. You can't use the software from your 20s.
Exactly. You have to send a signal that cuts through the noise of anabolic resistance without overloading a nervous system that is already compromised by the lack of progesterone.
So if grinding out 45 minutes on the treadmill or doing daily HIIT boot camps is the go-to answer from the fitness industry, we have to look at why that might actually be biochemically backfiring.
Right, because for a lot of women it is backfiring.
The ACE guidelines and the weight loss blog source detail how these long cardio sessions create a massive spike in cortisol, our primary stress hormone.
And in our 20s, estrogen acted as a buffer. It protected us from the worst systemic effects of that cortisol spike, but with the estrogen buffer diminished, that cortisol stays chronically elevated.
And chronically elevated cortisol in midlife is a metabolic disaster. The ACE article specifically highlights the pregnenolone steal.
This is a crucial concept.
Let me see if I have this mechanism right. Pregnenolone is a precursor hormone. It's like raw lumber. The body can use that raw lumber to build either a stress house, which is cortisol, or a calm house, which is progesterone.
That's a brilliant analogy, yes.
When you are doing extreme HIIT, your body perceives that as a survival threat. It demands the stress house. So it literally steals the lumber away from the progesterone pathway to manufacture more cortisol.
And the downstream effect of that steal is that you worsen your own hot flashes, anxiety, and insomnia. You are inducing adrenal fatigue through exercise.
That's wild. You're actually making the menopause symptoms worse by working out too hard.
Exactly. High cortisol suppresses melatonin, destroying your sleep architecture, and it raises insulin levels, locking the body right back into that fat storage mode.
So you are sweating for an hour, exhausting your joints, and your hormonal profile is actively storing fat to protect you from the quote-unquote stress of the workout.
Right. It's a complete mismatch of stimulus and biology.
I have to push back here, though. I read the Julie Medwood physio source in our stack, and she mounts a very strong pro-HI8 defense. She argues cortisol is not the villain we make it out to be.
She makes some very valid points, yes.
She points out that the acute spike of cortisol from high-intensity exercise is an adaptive signal. It mobilizes glucose, temporarily reduces inflammation, and builds systemic resilience.
Right. The acute spike is necessary.
She says avoiding intensity means missing out on the exact neuromuscular adaptations our bodies need. So how do we reconcile this?
Resolving this tension is key to the whole puzzle, because they are both right. The missing piece that synthesizes this debate is the context of recovery.
Okay, the context of recovery.
Julie Medwood is completely correct that an acute, short-term spike of cortisol is a positive adaptation signal if it falls back to baseline afterward.
Ah, the return to baseline is the catch.
Exactly. Women in perimenopause are dealing with hormonal stress, poor sleep from the progesterone drop, and vascular stiffness. Their baseline stress is already elevated.
So if you take a nervous system humming with anxiety and lack of sleep, and you throw a 45-minute HI8 class at it 5 days a week, the cortisol spikes, but it never has a chance to drop.
You simply do not have the recovery capacity. The solution isn't to stop working hard. The solution is to change the volume, the duration, and the type of intensity so that the cortisol spike is brief, controlled, and paired with massive recovery.
Okay, so if long cardio and endless HI8 are spiking cortisol without allowing recovery, we have to find a way to load the muscles heavily without triggering that prolonged survival response.
And that points us directly to military calisthenics.
Right. Let's define what we mean by military calisthenics, because the name itself can conjure up some intimidating imagery.
It really can.
When I hear military calisthenics, I immediately picture recruits in combat boots doing endless burpees in the mud while a drill sergeant screams at them in the rain. It sounds like a cortisol nightmare.
Yeah, that's the Hollywood version. Military calisthenics, as adapted in Sergeant Major Smith's book and supported by the Calisthenics Association guidelines, is structured, progressive resistance training using your own body weight.
So it's not about jumping around until you puke.
Not at all. It focuses on functional movement patterns. Pushing, pulling, squatting, hinging performed with rigorous attention to form.
It removes the intimidation of the gym, the commute, the need for machines, and focuses purely on controlling your own mass through space.
And there is a very specific physiological reason why bodyweight training is superior for this demographic. It has to do with how our joints change as estrogen declines.
Okay, let's talk about the joints. Because when you use gym machines, you are locked into a fixed plane of motion. The machine dictates the path.
Right. But every human body has unique lever lengths and joint structures. Body weight movements allow your joints to find their optimal natural path of movement.
Which is crucial.
Very crucial. Estrogen receptors are present throughout your connective tissue and cartilage, particularly in the knee and shoulder joints. As estrogen drops, collagen synthesis decreases. The connective tissue becomes less resilient.
The shock absorbers are wearing out.
Exactly. If you force a less resilient joint into a fixed, unnatural plane on a leg press machine, you invite shearing forces and injury.
But bodyweight training allows the joint to articulate naturally, protecting the cartilage while still heavily loading the muscle.
Precisely. It's about training smarter, not just harder.
To make sure we are doing this safely, Sergeant Major Smith outlines the 4 pillars of safe movement. And honestly, these completely changed how I approach even basic exercises.
They are foundational for a reason.
Pillar number 1 is breathing. Specifically, diaphragmatic breathing and engaging the pelvic floor. The book states emphatically, your pelvic floor is not optional.
It's a critical point ignored in almost all mainstream fitness. Every time you push, squat, or plank, you generate massive intra-abdominal pressure.
And if you don't engage the pelvic floor, drawing it up slightly like an elevator as you exhale on the exertion phase, that pressure pushes down on organs and tissues that may already be compromised by hormonal changes, gravity, or past childbirth.
Right. Proper breathing manages that pressure safely, turning the core into a supportive cylinder rather than a balloon about to pop at the bottom.
Pillar 2 is bracing, creating a 360-degree cylinder of tension. It's not just sucking your stomach in, is it?
Sucking your stomach in destabilizes the spine. Imagine you're about to be punched in the stomach. That immediate outward tightening, that's the start of a brace.
So it's an outward push, not an inward pull.
Yes, but it's not just the front abdominals. You have to recruit the obliques on the side and the lower back muscles, creating a rigid muscular corset that protects the lumbar spine from shearing forces during movement.
Wow. Pillar 3 is alignment, maintaining a neutral spine from head to tailbone. It sounds obvious, but it's amazing how quickly we lose it when fatigue sets in.
The neck is part of the spine, which people forget. If you are doing a push-up and your head drops down like a turtle trying to reach the floor faster, you've broken alignment.
And the mechanical force transfers to the delicate cervical spine instead of staying in the chest and triceps where it belongs.
Exactly. You lose the benefit of the exercise and invite injury.
Pillar 4 is intention, the mind-muscle connection. The book cites motor learning research showing that simply thinking about the target muscle measurably increases its electrical activation.
Because the brain controls motor unit recruitment. If you blindly go through the motions of a row, your brain will take the path of least resistance and likely just use your biceps.
But if you actively focus on squeezing the shoulder blades together, visualizing the muscle fibers contracting, your brain recruits the rhomboids and the trapezius.
Right. Intention actually changes the physiological outcome of the exercise.
So let's take those pillars and deconstruct the actual movements, because the detail in this book is phenomenal, starting with the push.
The book argues that a push-up is not an arm exercise, it is a full-body movement.
Right. When performed correctly, a floor push-up requires you to load approximately 60% of your total body weight.
Yes, your chest, shoulders, and triceps are the prime movers, but your core, glutes, and quadriceps are working intensely isometrically to maintain that rigid plank.
Furthermore, it requires scapular protraction and retraction, meaning your shoulder blades must glide freely over your rib cage.
Which is essential for long-term shoulder health. You don't get that free scapular movement when your back is pinned to a bench during a bench press.
But what if you can't do a floor push-up? I love that the progression is laid out so clearly, and it explicitly says not to do them on your knees.
Doing push-ups on your knees breaks the alignment pillar. It takes the core entirely out of the equation and changes the angle of the shoulder joint unfavorably.
So what's the correct progression?
The correct progression is to change the angle of the floor, not the length of your body's lever. You start with a wall push-up, focusing on perfect tension.
Okay, so standing and pushing against the wall.
Right. Once you own that movement, you move to an incline push-up, placing your hands on a kitchen counter or a sturdy chair. As strength builds, you systematically lower the incline until you reach the floor push-up.
That makes so much sense. Let's move to the lower body. Squat, lunge, and hinge. The focus here is entirely on joint protection and functional independence.
Because getting off the toilet or out of a low chair is basically a squat.
Exactly. The progression starts with an assisted squat. You hold onto a door frame or TRX bands for balance.
This allows you to sit your hips back naturally without fear of falling backward, keeping the weight in your heels and off your knees. From there, you move to the bodyweight squat.
And the hinge. The book calls the hip hinge the absolute cure for lower back pain.
Most lower back pain originates from picking things up by rounding the lumbar spine instead of hinging at the hips and utilizing the massive, powerful muscles of the glutes and hamstrings.
So the program trains this, starting safely on the floor with the glute bridge.
Yes. You progress to a single leg glute bridge, which aggressively challenges the posterior chain while keeping the spine completely unloaded.
They also incorporate the lateral lunge, which is vital. It trains the gluteus medius, moving side to side in the frontal plane.
The glute medius is the ultimate lateral stabilizer for the knee joint. If it's weak, the knee caves inward during movement, leading to pain.
When it comes to the core, everyone seems to want the aesthetic six-pack, but the book pivots hard away from crunching movement.
Because true core strength is not about flexing the spine, it is about anti-movement. It's about stability.
The program focuses on the floor plank, prioritizing perfect form neutral spine, aggressively squeezed glutes, engaged lats over arbitrary time goals.
A shaking, perfectly tensioned 20-second plank is infinitely more valuable than a sagging, lazy 60-second plank that hangs on the lower back ligaments.
They also utilize the dead bug exercise. I love the dead bug. It trains the core to resist extension, forcing you to keep your lower back actively glued to the floor while your arms and legs move away from your center of mass.
It exposes core weakness immediately, doesn't it?
Oh, instantly. Finally, The pull. This is the antidote to our modern forward dominant posture. We spend all day hunched over steering wheels, laptops, and phones.
Pulling movements retract the scapulae and strengthen the posterior chain.
But since this is a calisthenics program and we don't have barbells or cable machines, how do we pull?
The program utilizes wall rows and incline rows underneath a sturdy table or using a suspension trainer. It also features prone YT and W raises lying face down on the floor.
These specifically target the lower and middle trapezius, right?
Right.
The tiny postural muscles that pull the shoulders back, open the chest, and counteract that rounded shoulder posture.
Exactly. So we have the science, we have the mechanics of the movements. How does it all come together?
Right. This 28-day program constitutes the foundation phase, which is weeks 1 through 4 of a broader 12-week framework. I want to look at how a single session is architected, because it clearly respects the recovery constraints we talked about earlier.
Every session has 3 distinct parts. It starts with a non-negotiable 5-minute activation sequence.
Cat-cow stretches to articulate the spine, hip circles, and glute bridges.
Right. This wakes up the central nervous system and lubricates the joints with synovial fluid. Then, the main workout, which is highly condensed, taking only 15 to 20 minutes.
And it ends with a mandatory 5-minute cool down to start bringing that cortisol down immediately.
The sessions are designed to fit into 15, 30, or 40-minute blocks, depending on how many rounds you do and your rest periods.
The psychology embedded in this program is brilliant, specifically regarding the psychology of the missed session. This is the exact trap I usually fall into.
The all-or-nothing collapse.
Yes. You miss a Wednesday workout because you had a late meeting or you slept poorly. Suddenly, that missed Wednesday becomes evidence in your head that you lack discipline.
You feel guilty on Thursday, and by Friday, you've quit the program entirely. It's a devastating cognitive distortion.
The protocol in this book circumvents it perfectly. Do not add penalty sessions. Do not restart the program from day 1.
If you miss Wednesday, you do not double up and punish yourself on Thursday. You simply pick up exactly where you left off.
The missed session is just a missed session. It has absolutely no moral weight.
Exactly. And then there's the day 14 protocol. Statistically, day 14 is the day the initial excitement wears off, the soreness is accumulated, and you want to quit.
The book talks about identity versus motivation. When you don't want to train, you don't rely on motivation, because motivation is an emotion and emotions are fleeting.
You rely on your identity as someone who trains, and the practical protocol for that day is a lifesaver.
On the day you want to quit, you make a negotiation with yourself. Commit only to the 5-minute activation sequence. Just do the cat-cows and hip circles on the living room floor.
If, after 5 minutes, you still want to stop, you stop guilt-free. But neurobiologically, task initiation is the hardest hurdle.
Once the body is moving, blood is flowing, and the joints feel looser, the mental friction to continue into the main workout is drastically reduced. It's a highly effective behavioral hack.
Let's walk through the evolution of the full 12 weeks. Weeks 1 through 4 are the foundation phase. You are doing full body circuits 4 days a week with generous 90-second rest periods between rounds.
The primary physiological goal in the foundation phase isn't massive muscle growth, it is neural adaptation. We are teaching your brain to communicate efficiently with your muscles, grooving the movement patterns so the push-up and the squat become second nature.
You are building the neurological wiring. Then we hit the build phase, weeks 5 through 8. This is where the intensity ramps up without adding external weight through the tempo protocol.
The tempo protocol is incredibly demanding. For example, on a squat, you take 3 full seconds to descend, pause for 2 seconds at the absolute bottom, holding the tension, and take 2 seconds to stand back up.
This drastically increases the time under tension for the muscle. It forces muscle hypertrophy and exposes any weak points in your form. Conditioning circuits, short bursts of cardiovascular work, also increase in this phase to challenge the energy systems.
Finally, the strength phase, weeks 9 through 12.
The program shifts to an upper-lower body split to allow for more concentrated volume per muscle group. We introduce isometric holds.
Imagine lowering yourself to the bottom of a push-up, the position of greatest mechanical disadvantage, and holding it perfectly still for 5 to 8 seconds.
It builds profound connective tissue strength. We also introduce unilateral loading, like single-leg lunges, to correct right-left strength imbalances.
And finally, power development. You control the descent, but you explode upward with maximal intent. This specifically targets the fast-twitch muscle fibers, which are the first to atrophy as we age.
Throughout all 12 weeks, there is a heavy emphasis on active recovery and sleep. Rest days are not lie-on-the-couch days.
Passive rest can actually increase stiffness. Active recovery means light, restorative movement walking, mobility work, swimming.
It maintains blood flow, delivering oxygen and nutrients to the repairing muscles and flushing out metabolic waste without spiking cortisol.
And sleep is treated as a structural part of the training. Growth hormone, your body's premier anabolic tissue-repairing signal, is released in pulses during deep sleep.
If you truncate your sleep, you literally truncate your body's ability to repair the muscle you stimulated during the workout. Sleep is half the training program.
We are covering so much ground, but I want to take a moment to look at the broader implications of all this. Beyond just feeling better or losing the belly fat, there is a silent structural crisis that this type of training addresses.
You are referring to bone density? The statistics are sobering. Osteoporosis affects 1 in 3 women over the age of 50.
It is a silent thinning of the bone architecture until a catastrophic fracture occurs. But the data from the Calisthenics 101 source and Osteoporosis International provides a clear countermeasure.
Bones are living tissue. They respond to mechanical stress by triggering osteoblasts.
Osteoblasts are the bone-building cells, right? So by bearing weight, like holding a plank or loading the spine in a squat, you are literally telling your bones to armor up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Weight-bearing and high-impact resistance training provide the exact mechanical stress required to signal those osteoblasts. Studies cited in our sources show that specific progressive resistance protocols can yield a 2% increase in spine bone mineral density in postmenopausal women.
That is the literal difference between fragility and resilience. It translates to real measurable strength, too.
Yes, the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research noted that military-style circuit training yields 18 to 25% upper and lower body strength improvements in just 12 weeks.
And the DUW study found that even just 72 minutes of targeted activity a week drastically improves cardiac fitness for women in the 55 to 59 age bracket.
The body's capacity to regenerate and strengthen is remarkable, provided it receives the right signal.
I want to underscore the stakes here, because this isn't about vanity. It is about not losing your independence.
Muscle loss compounds. If you don't actively fight sarcopenia, you experience something called myosteatosis.
Myosteatosis, that's fat infiltration directly into the muscle tissue itself, right? Like marbled meat.
Yes. It turns lean, functional muscle into marbled, dysfunctional tissue. This directly increases the risk of type 2 diabetes because you have less healthy muscle tissue to soak up glucose.
It increases the risk of stroke, and critically, it increases the risk of falls.
As we age, neuromuscular adaptations. How quickly your brain can recruit motor units to catch your balance if you trip on a rug are your ultimate defense against a hip fracture.
Building muscle and bone density right now in your 40s and 50s is exactly like putting money into a high-yield savings account for your retirement.
That's a perfect way to think about it.
The earlier and more consistently you invest those physical deposits, the greater the compound interest protects you when you hit 70 or 80 and you really need it. If you wait until you are bankrupt, until you've lost the strength to get off the floor, it is so much harder to build that wealth back.
You are banking physical capital. You are investing in your future autonomy.
Thinking back to my own frustrations, hitting that wall, feeling exhausted, feeling like my body had betrayed me.
Wait, it would have been so profoundly transformative to have this blueprint years ago.
You can know with absolute scientific certainty that you aren't failing.
Exactly. You aren't lazy. Your biology has simply shifted, and it is just asking for a new approach.
It's a shift from self-blame to biological empowerment. The rules changed, so you just learn the new rules.
That is why both of us so strongly advocate for this illustrated 28-day program as the perfect, accessible entry point. It requires no gym. It requires no equipment.
You can do it in your living room.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it fundamentally respects the hormonal reality of the female body over 40. It doesn't punish you, it builds you. It applies the precise dose of mechanical stress required to trigger adaptation, while fiercely protecting the recovery capacity and joint health that are so critical at this life stage.
Here's our call to action for you. Find a copy of the complete military calisthenics workout for women in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Read it.
Internalize the science we've talked about today, and then clear a little space on your floor and begin your day one. Just do the 5-minute activation if that's all you have in you, but start.
As you embark on that, I want to leave you with one final lingering concept to mull over. We've talked extensively about how your body is fundamentally remodeling itself during perimenopause and menopause. It's changing how it handles stress, how it builds bone, and how it uses energy.
It's a huge remodeling process.
So what if we stopped viewing this transition as a decline? What if instead we saw this profound biological shift as a prompt? a biological mandate to finally stop exercising for aesthetic approval and to start training for absolute, uncompromising physical independence.
Training for uncompromising independence. I absolutely love that. When that check engine light comes on in midlife, it's not telling you the car is totaled. It's just telling you it's time to upgrade the operating system. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. You are now equipped with the ultimate shortcut to being well informed on your own biology. We will see you next time.